My name is Sloan Hartwell, I'm 28, and I thought I knew my family until 3 words shattered everything I believed about blood loyalty. You're not invited. My brother Marcus spoke those words with such casual cruelty that I actually laughed, thinking it was some twisted joke. But his fiancée Emma's smug smile told me otherwise. 28 years of being the supportive sister, the family peacekeeper, the one who always showed up, and suddenly I wasn't worthy of celebrating his engagement. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. Before we dive into how my entire world unraveled in paradise, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you're ready for a wild ride of family drama that'll make your jaw drop, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this story has more twists than a Hawaiian mountain road, and trust me, you won't see the ending coming. Growing up in suburban Denver, Marcus and I were supposedly the perfect sibling duo. He was 3 years older, the golden boy who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Mom would always say Marcus is destined for greatness and Sloan will always be there to support him. I internalized that role so completely that I never questioned it, even when it meant sacrificing my own dreams. When Marcus announced his engagement to Emma Richardson 6 months ago, I was genuinely thrilled. Emma seemed sweet enough. A pharmaceutical sales rep with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and an Instagram-worthy smile. She came from old money, the kind that whispered rather than shouted about wealth. The Richardsons owned half the commercial real estate in downtown Denver, and Emma's engagement ring probably cost more than my annual salary as a graphic designer. I threw myself into wedding planning support mode immediately. I researched venues, created mood boards, even offered to design their invitations for free. Marcus seemed appreciative at first, texting me updates and asking for my opinion on everything from flower arrangements to honeymoon destinations. Emma was more reserved, but I attributed that to wedding stress. The first red flag should have been when Emma started making subtle comments about my appearance at family dinners. "Oh, Sloan, that's such an interesting outfit choice," she'd say with a saccharine smile that never reached her eyes. Or, "I love how confident you are wearing vintage pieces." I could never pull off that unique style. Mom would laugh awkwardly and Marcus would change the subject, but I felt each comment like a paper cut. Then came the venue visits. Suddenly, Emma preferred to go alone with Marcus or with her own family. When I asked about joining them for cake tastings, Marcus would say Emma thinks it might be overwhelming with too many opinions. I started feeling like an outsider to my own brother's wedding, but I told myself I was being oversensitive. The engagement party planning began 2 months ago. Emma wanted something elegant and intimate. Her words, "at the Denver Country Club." The guest list grew from 50 to 200 people, all carefully curated by Emma's social standards. When I asked about helping with decorations or setup, Emma politely declined. "We've hired a professional coordinator, but thank you for offering." I should have seen the writing on the wall when the formal invitations went out. Everyone in our extended family received theirs. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Even my ex-boyfriend Jake, who remained friends with Marcus, got an invitation. But my mailbox remained conspicuously empty. I assumed it was an oversight, maybe lost in the mail. When I casually mentioned it to Mom, she got that familiar uncomfortable look she wore whenever family tension arose. "I'm sure it's just a mistake, honey. You know how hectic wedding planning can be." But deep down, I knew it wasn't a mistake. The exclusion felt deliberate, calculated. Still, I couldn't bring myself to believe my own brother would intentionally hurt me like that. Last Tuesday, exactly 1 week before the engagement party, I decided to address it directly. I drove to Marcus's apartment after work, armed with takeout from his favorite Thai restaurant, our childhood tradition for difficult conversations. The moment he opened the door, I knew something was wrong. His usual warm smile was replaced by an expression I'd never seen before, guilt mixed with something that looked almost like disgust. "We need to talk," I said, holding up the food bags. He reluctantly let me in, but Emma emerged from the bedroom immediately as if she'd been waiting for this confrontation. She was wearing one of those expensive athleisure outfits that cost more than my rent, her hair pulled back in a perfect messy bun that probably took 20 minutes to achieve. "Sloane, how nice of you to drop by unannounced," Emma said, her voice dripping with false politeness. I ignored her passive-aggressive greeting and focused on my brother. "Marcus, I never received an invitation to your engagement party. I'm assuming it got lost in the mail." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus couldn't meet my eyes, instead staring at his hands, while Emma stepped closer to him, claiming her territory. "Actually," Emma said, her voice taking on a sharper edge, "we decided to keep the guest list very exclusive. Only people who truly understand and support our relationship." "I don't understand," I said, looking between them. "I've been nothing but supportive. I've been helping with wedding planning for months." That's when Marcus finally looked up, and I saw something in his eyes that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't the loving, protective big brother I'd known my entire life. This was a stranger wearing my brother's face. "The truth is, Sloane, you don't really fit with the image we're trying to create." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What image? What are you talking about?" Emma's smile grew wider, more predatory. "Let's be honest, Sloane. You're different. Your lifestyle, your career choices, your presentation. The engagement party is about celebrating our future, and frankly, having you there would send the wrong message to the important people in our lives." I felt the room spinning. "My lifestyle, my career. I'm a graphic designer, Marcus. I have a good job, my own apartment. I've never asked you for anything." "It's not about money," Marcus said quietly, but his words felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced this speech. "It's about compatibility. Emma's family, her friends, they're from a different world, a more refined world. And honestly, you've never really tried to fit in." The cruelty of it took my breath away. This wasn't just about one party. This was about my brother deciding I wasn't good enough for his new life. Emma stood there with that satisfied smile, clearly pleased with how effectively she'd poisoned my relationship with Marcus. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 28 years of being your sister and now I'm just not good enough." Marcus wouldn't answer. Emma did instead. "It's nothing personal, Sloane. It's just business. Social business." That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my laptop screen, paralyzed by hurt and disbelief. The family group chat was buzzing with excitement about the engagement party. Aunt Linda was asking about dress codes. Cousin Jennifer was planning to drive in from Colorado Springs. Even my grandmother was discussing travel arrangements from Florida. Everyone was invited except me. I realized then that this wasn't just about Emma's snobbery or social climbing. This was about my brother choosing his new family over his old one, choosing status over love, choosing everything I'd been raised to believe didn't matter in our family. The foundation of everything I believed about family loyalty had just crumbled beneath my feet. I called in sick to work the next morning, something I'd never done for emotional reasons before. My boss, thankfully, was understanding when I explained I was dealing with a family crisis. The apartment felt suffocating, filled with childhood photos of Marcus and me that now seemed like lies. Every image of us together, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings, graduation days, felt like evidence of a relationship that had apparently meant nothing to him. The group family chat continued buzzing with party preparations. Mom had posted photos of her new dress, Dad was making jokes about his dancing skills, and cousins were coordinating arrival times. I was a ghost in my own family's celebration, invisible and irrelevant. The pain was so acute I could barely breathe. By Thursday afternoon, I'd made a decision that surprised even me. If my family wanted to exclude me from their special moment, then I'd create my own special moment. I opened my laptop and booked a solo trip to Maui. Something I'd dreamed about for years, but never had the courage to do alone. The flight left Friday evening, and I'd be lying on a beach while they were toasting my brother's future without me. I'd been saving money for a new car, but suddenly that seemed trivial compared to my need to escape. The luxury resort was expensive, ridiculously so, but I didn't care. I wanted to be somewhere beautiful, while my world was ugly, somewhere peaceful, while my heart was in chaos. Friday evening, as I sat in the airport waiting for my flight, I watched the family group chat explode with last-minute party preparations. Photos of flower arrangements, the country club setup, Emma getting her hair done. Each notification was like a small knife twist, but also confirmation that I was making the right choice by leaving. I turned off my phone before boarding, and didn't turn it back on until I landed in Maui at midnight local time. The warm air hit me like a gentle embrace, so different from Denver's crisp October weather. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe properly. The resort was everything the photos promised and more. My ocean view room had a private balcony overlooking the beach, and the sound of waves immediately began working their therapeutic magic. I fell asleep that night with the sliding door open, letting the ocean breeze carry away some of my pain. Saturday morning, I woke up to paradise. The engagement party was happening that evening in Denver, but I was watching the sunrise over the Pacific Ocean with a cup of Kona coffee in my hands. I felt guilty for a moment, wondering if I should have stayed and fought for my place in the family, but then I remembered Emma's cruel words and Marcus's cowardice, and the guilt evaporated. I spent the day exploring the island, driving the road to Hana, with its incredible waterfalls and dramatic coastline. For hours at a time, I forgot about my family drama entirely. I was just Sloane, a woman on an adventure discovering her own strength. I stopped at a local fruit stand and tried exotic fruits I'd never heard of. I hiked to a secluded beach and swam in water so clear I could see tropical fish swimming around my feet. That evening, as my family celebrated Marcus's engagement without me, I was having dinner at a beachfront restaurant, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink. I ordered the most expensive wine on the menu and toasted myself for having the courage to choose my own happiness over their rejection. I posted one photo on Instagram. Just my feet in the sand with the ocean in the background. Captioned, "Sometimes the best invitation is the one you give yourself." I didn't tag anyone or use location services. It was my secret rebellion, my quiet declaration of independence. Sunday was even better. I booked a snorkeling excursion to Molokini Crater, where I swam with sea turtles and manta rays. The underwater world was so peaceful, so removed from human drama and cruelty. For the first time since Marcus's betrayal, I felt genuinely happy rather than just distracted from my pain. I struck up conversations with other travelers. A retired couple from Portland, celebrating their 40th anniversary. A group of college friends on their annual girls' trip. A solo traveler like myself, who was celebrating a job promotion. Everyone had stories, dreams, reasons for being there that had nothing to do with family obligation or social climbing. It was refreshingly honest. That night, I attended a traditional luau at the resort. The music, dancing, and storytelling felt like being welcomed into a family that actually wanted me there. An elderly Hawaiian woman named Tutu Rose sat next to me during dinner, and somehow, without me saying much, seemed to understand I was healing from something painful. Sometimes the ocean calls us when we need to remember who we are beneath all the hurt, she said, patting my hand with weathered fingers that spoke of a lifetime of wisdom. I almost cried at her kindness. It had been so long since someone had shown me unconditional acceptance. Monday morning, I decided to extend my trip by one day. I wasn't ready to return to reality to face whatever aftermath awaited me in Denver. I rented a bike and explored upcountry Maui, visiting lavender farms and tiny towns that felt like they existed outside of time. The exercise and fresh air cleared my head in ways I hadn't expected. That afternoon, I finally felt ready to turn my phone back on and face whatever messages awaited me. I'd been completely disconnected for 3 days, living in a bubble of self-care and discovery. But I knew eventually I'd have to deal with the consequences of my absence, whatever they might be. I was sitting on my balcony watching the waves and working up the courage to reconnect with the world I'd left behind. The phone felt heavy in my hands, loaded with the potential for more hurt or disappointment. But I'd found something in Hawaii. A sense of my own worth that didn't depend on other people's approval. Whatever was waiting for me, I felt stronger now, more grounded in who I was when I wasn't trying to be who others wanted me to be. The engagement party was over. My family had celebrated without me, probably barely noticing my absence among the 200 carefully selected guests. But I had celebrated too in my own way, surrounded by natural beauty and genuine kindness from strangers who saw me as worthy of respect simply because I was human. As the sun began to set on my third day in paradise, I finally pressed the power button on my phone and watched as it came back to life. I had no idea that my world was about to change forever, that my quiet rebellion had set in motion events that would expose secrets I never could have imagined. The phone buzzed to life like an angry wasp nest. Notification after notification flooded the screen. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, Instagram messages, Facebook notifications. The numbers were staggering: 47 missed calls, 89 text messages, 23 voicemails. My heart started racing as I scrolled through the contact names. Mom, Dad, Marcus, Emma, Aunt Linda, cousins I rarely spoke to, even my high school friend Melissa, who lived in California. But it was the timestamps that made my blood run cold. The calls and messages had started Saturday evening around 8 p.m. Denver time, right when the engagement party would have been in full swing. They continued through the night, intensifying on Sunday and reaching a fever pitch Monday morning. The most recent message was from my mother, sent just an hour ago. Sloan, please call me immediately. We need to talk. Everything has fallen apart. My hands were shaking as I opened the text thread from Marcus. The first message was from Saturday night, 9:43 p.m. Sloan, where are you? We need to talk right now. Then came a barrage of increasingly frantic messages. This isn't funny anymore. Call me back. Emma is losing her mind. What did you do? How could you know about this? How long have you known? Everyone is asking questions I can't answer. The engagement is off. Are you happy now? I stared at that last message, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. The engagement was off. What did he mean? What did you do? I hadn't done anything except remove myself from their toxic situation. I scrolled to the family group chat, and what I found there made my stomach drop. The cheerful party preparations from Friday had been replaced by chaos. Messages flying back and forth, people demanding explanations, my mother trying to keep everyone calm, my father unusually silent. Aunt Linda, I can't believe what happened. Poor little Emma looked devastated. Cousin Jennifer, wait, what exactly happened? I left early for the babysitter. Mom, please, everyone, let's not discuss this in the group chat. This is a private family matter. Uncle Bob, Private Helen, half of Denver's elite, witnessed that meltdown. It's going to be in the society pages tomorrow. My father, breaking his silence. Has anyone been able to reach Sloan? The timeline was confusing, but one thing was clear. Something had gone catastrophically wrong at the engagement party, and somehow, I was being blamed for it. But how could I be responsible for anything when I was 1,200 miles away, completely disconnected? I called my mother first, my heart hammering against my ribs. She answered on the first ring. Sloan, oh, thank God. Where have you been? We've been calling you for days. I'm in Hawaii, Mom. I turned off my phone. What's happening? Marcus says. The engagement is off. There was a long pause, and I could hear my mother's labored breathing. Honey, you need to come home. There's been a situation. A revelation. About Emma. What kind of revelation? Not over the phone. This is too big, too complicated. How soon can you get back to Denver? Mom, you're scaring me. Just tell me what happened. Another pause. Someone at the engagement party, and I still don't know who. sent photos to Emma's phone during the party. Photos of her with another man. Multiple men, actually. Very compromising photos. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. What? The photos came from an anonymous number, but they were recent, Sloan. Very recent. Some looked like they were taken this week. During the party, Emma's phone kept buzzing with these images, and she finally looked at them during the toasts. She ran out of the room screaming, and Marcus followed her. This was insane. Mom, I don't understand why everyone's calling me. I've been in Hawaii since Friday night. I haven't sent anyone anything. I know, sweetheart. But Emma is convinced you're behind this somehow. She's telling everyone you must have hired a private investigator or something. She's claiming you've been sabotaging their relationship from the beginning. The audacity was breathtaking. Emma had explicitly told me I wasn't worthy of their social circle, had convinced my brother to exclude me from the engagement party, and now she was blaming me for her own infidelity being exposed. That's ridiculous, Mom. I've been swimming with sea turtles and hiking waterfalls. I haven't been investigating anyone. I believe you, honey. But Emma has always been persuasive. And Marcus is devastated. He's not thinking clearly right now. I scrolled through more messages while talking to my mother. There were several from people I barely knew. Friends of Emma's family apparently demanding to know why I had destroyed their relationship. The narrative being spread was that I was a jealous, vindictive sister who couldn't handle being excluded from the family's upper-class ascension. Mom, who sent the photos, do we know? That's the mystery. The number was traced to a burner phone. Whoever did this knew exactly when to strike for maximum impact. The timing was surgical, right during the toasts when Emma was at the center of attention, when she couldn't hide or make excuses. I found myself strangely fascinated by the precision of it all. Someone had been watching, waiting, documenting Emma's infidelity with the patience of a professional. The thought that someone else had seen through Emma's perfect facade was oddly satisfying, even though I had nothing to do with exposing her. There was a voicemail from Emma herself, left Sunday morning. Her voice was raw from crying and shaking with rage. "You vindictive bitch, I know this was you. You couldn't stand that Marcus chose someone better, someone worthy of his future. You've always been jealous of what I represent. Class breeding success. But I will destroy you for this. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of toxic, pathetic person you really are. Marcus will never forgive you for ruining his happiness." I played the message twice, amazed by the venom in her voice. Even in her downfall, she couldn't resist insulting my character and background. The woman who had cheated on my brother was calling me toxic. There were also several messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Apparently, Emma had shared my contact information with her friends and family, encouraging them to harass me. The messages ranged from accusatory to downright threatening. One woman, identifying herself as Emma's sister, had written, "You trailer trash, piece of garbage. Emma told us all about your pathetic jealousy. How dare you destroy my sister's happiness because you're too much of a loser to find your own." The social class warfare was stunning. These people had constructed an entire narrative where I was the bitter poor relation, too inferior to accept my place in their hierarchy. The fact that I had a college degree, a successful career, and my own apartment meant nothing to them. In their worldview, I was inherently lesser because I didn't come from old money or care about the right social markers. But the most illuminating messages came from unexpected sources. My cousin Jake, who had been at the party, sent a detailed account of what had happened. According to him, Emma had been drinking heavily and flirting with multiple men throughout the evening. She'd disappeared for 40 minutes during cocktail hour and returned with her lipstick smudged and her hair disheveled. When the anonymous photos started arriving, showing her in various compromising positions with different men, some party guests recognized the locations and timeframes. The crazy thing Jake had texted is that the photos weren't just from this week. Some were from months ago. Whoever sent them had been building a case for a long time. It was like watching a masterclass in strategic destruction. Now I was sitting in paradise watching the sun set over the Pacific, while my family's drama exploded 1,200 miles away. I should have felt triumphant. The woman who had cruelly excluded me was facing consequences for her own actions. But mostly I felt hollow. My brother was heartbroken, my family was in chaos, and I was being blamed for seeking justice I hadn't even pursued. This wasn't how I wanted vindication to feel. I had come to Hawaii to heal from rejection, not to be accused of orchestrating elaborate revenge schemes. Yet someone somewhere had seen fit to expose Emma's true nature with perfect timing and devastating effectiveness. Who had been watching her so carefully? Who had cared enough about my brother's welfare, or perhaps my own humiliation, to document her betrayal so thoroughly? And why was the timing so perfectly aligned with my absence, making me the perfect scapegoat for their methodical destruction of Emma's carefully constructed image? The questions swirled in my mind as I prepared to cut my healing trip short and return to face the chaos that awaited me in Denver. I booked a red-eye flight back to Denver, leaving paradise behind for what I knew would be a war zone. During the 6-hour flight, I kept reviewing the messages and voicemails, trying to piece together what had really happened at the engagement party. The more I read, the more sophisticated the whole operation seemed. The anonymous photographer hadn't just caught Emma in one moment of weakness. According to Cousin Jake's detailed account, the photos showed a pattern of behavior spanning months. Images of her leaving hotels, with different men kissing someone in a parking garage, entering an apartment building with a man who definitely wasn't Marcus. The metadata on the photos, which tech-savvy cousin Derek had analyzed, showed dates going back 6 months, basically the entire duration of her engagement. Landing in Denver Tuesday morning felt like entering a different reality. The crisp October air that had felt refreshing a week ago now seemed harsh and unwelcoming. My phone immediately exploded with new messages as it connected to local towers. Marcus had called 17 more times overnight. I went straight home to shower and change before facing the family tribunal I knew awaited me. My apartment felt small and stuffy after the open beauty of Maui, but it was still my sanctuary. I made coffee and sat down to strategically plan my defense against accusations I still barely understood. The doorbell rang at 10 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw Marcus standing on my doorstep, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his designer shirt wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his bloodshot eyes. I almost felt sorry for him until I remembered his cruel words about me not fitting their refined image. "We need to talk," he said when I opened the door. His voice was hoarse, defeated. "Now you want to talk after excluding me from your engagement party because I wasn't classy enough for your fiancée," he winced. "Can I come in, please?" Against my better judgment, I let him in. He collapsed onto my couch like a broken man, and I realized this wasn't going to be the confrontation I'd been preparing for. "She's gone," he said quietly. "Emma left Denver Sunday night. Flew back to her parents in Connecticut. Won't take my calls, won't see me. It's over." I sat across from him, studying this stranger who used to be my protective big brother. "I'm sorry you're hurt, Marcus, but I didn't do anything to cause this." "I know." His admission surprised me. "I've been thinking about everything, and I know you didn't send those photos. The timeline doesn't work, and besides, you're not vindictive like that." "Then why did everyone immediately blame me?" He ran his hands through his hair. "Because Emma told everyone you'd been acting strange, asking weird questions about her past, trying to sabotage the relationship. She'd been planting seeds for weeks, making you look suspicious." This was news to me. What kind of questions? I barely spoke to Emma except about wedding planning. That's what I'm starting to realize. I think she was lying about a lot of things." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a text thread with Emma from the previous week, while I was in Hawaii. She had been telling him I'd been digging into her background and asking mutual friends inappropriate questions about her dating history. She'd even claimed I'd been following her around town taking photos. She was setting you up, Marcus said, his voice full of disgust. Creating a narrative where you'd be the obvious suspect when her secrets came out. Did she know someone was investigating her? I think she must have. Some of the photos, they were too strategic, like someone had been watching her for months documenting everything. She must have felt the walls closing in and decided to preemptively blame you. The sophistication of Emma's manipulation was breathtaking. She'd identified me as the perfect scapegoat, the rejected sister with motive for revenge, and had spent weeks building a case against me before her own evidence of infidelity surfaced. Marcus, I need you to understand something. The way you excluded me from the engagement party, the things you said about me not fitting in, that wasn't just Emma's influence. You made choices. His face crumpled. I know. God, Sloan, I know. I was so caught up in this new life, this fantasy of being part of their world. Emma made me feel like I was becoming someone important, someone worth respecting. And I thought you were holding me back from that. Holding you back how you represent everything I was before Emma. Middle class, normal, unpretentious. She convinced me that to really succeed in her world, I needed to distance myself from anything that reminded people of my ordinary background, including my own sister. The honesty was painful but necessary. So, you threw away 28 years of sibling relationship for social climbing. Yes. And I hate myself for it. We sat in silence for a moment, processing the destruction Emma had caused not just to Marcus's romantic relationship, but to our family bonds. There's something else, Marcus continued. I've been going through Emma's things that she left behind, trying to understand who she really was. I found some interesting stuff. He pulled out a folder from his bag. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, and what looked like private investigator reports. Emma hired a PI 6 months ago. Not to investigate you, to investigate me. My finances, my family background, my employment history. She was vetting me like I was applying for security clearance. I flipped through the documents amazed. The investigation was thorough. Employment verification, credit checks, even interviews with my parents' neighbors about our family's reputation and social standing. Look at this, Marcus pointed to a highlighted section. The PI had noted that Marcus had working-class family ties that could be problematic for long-term social integration, and specifically mentioned me as a potential source of embarrassment due to artistic career and unconventional lifestyle choices. Emma had literally paid someone to confirm that I wasn't good enough for her world. But here's the really crazy part, Marcus continued. I think this PI is who exposed her cheating. He showed me the final report dated just 2 weeks ago. The investigator had concluded his background check on Marcus, but noted concerning behavioral patterns in subject's fiancée that warrant further investigation if requested. I think Emma refused to pay for additional services, maybe fired him, and he decided to finish the job anyway. Look at the business card. The PI company was called Hartwell Investigations. Someone with my last name, or at least someone who'd adopted it as a business identity, had been investigating my family and ultimately exposed Emma's infidelity. Marcus, this is too weird to be a coincidence. I know. I've been trying to call them, but the number goes to voicemail. The address is a P.O. box. I studied the business card, feeling like we were looking at evidence of a much larger mystery. Who was Hartwell Investigations? Why had they taken such a personal interest in destroying Emma? And why had they used a name so close to my own? There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. Yesterday I got a call from Emma's sister. She told me Emma had been cheating throughout their entire relationship, not just during our engagement. Apparently, multiple people in her Connecticut social circle knew about it, but didn't want to get involved in messy drama. The picture was becoming clearer. Emma was a serial cheater who used her family's social status to avoid consequences. She'd chosen Marcus not for love, but as a carefully vetted upgrade from her Connecticut life. Someone successful enough to maintain her lifestyle, but grateful enough to overlook red flags. I was her safe choice, Marcus realized. The devoted fiancé who was so grateful to be accepted into her world that I'd never question her behavior, and I was the threat she needed to eliminate because I might actually look out for your best interests. We spent the next hour going through everything piece by piece. The anonymous photos, Emma's preemptive blame campaign, the mysterious PI firm with my last name, the systematic documentation of her infidelity. Someone had orchestrated Emma's downfall with professional precision, and they'd made sure I'd be safely out of town when it happened, creating the perfect alibi while making me look suspicious enough to become the scapegoat. The question that haunted me was simple: who cared enough about my brother, or me, to execute such an elaborate protective plan? The answer came from the most unexpected source. Thursday afternoon, while Marcus and I were still piecing together the timeline of Emma's deception, my doorbell rang again. This time I looked through the peephole to see a woman in her 50s I didn't recognize, well-dressed but nervous, holding a manila envelope. "Sloane Hartwell," she asked when I opened the door. "Yes, my name is Patricia Kowalski. I'm Jake Morrison's mother." Jake? My ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago, the one who'd remained friends with Marcus and had been invited to the engagement party. I hadn't thought about him in months. "I need to talk to you about something that happened at the engagement party. About what my son did." My blood went cold. Jake had sent those photos. But that didn't make sense. He'd seemed genuinely confused in his text messages about what had happened. "Mrs. Kowalski, I'm not sure what you mean. May I come in? This is complicated." I let her in, calling for Marcus to join us. Patricia sat on my couch, clutching the envelope like it contained explosives. "My son Jake has been struggling with something for months," she began. "Ever since Emma started planning the engagement party and you were excluded." She knew about that. Jake was horrified by how Emma and Marcus treated you. He'd been watching Emma for weeks, suspicious about her behavior, especially after some things he'd observed at social events. So he hired someone to investigate her. He hired the PI, yes, but not under his own name. He used a variation of your last name for the business identity because he wanted the investigation to feel like it was protecting you, even though you didn't know about it. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Jake had been my anonymous protector, the person who'd cared enough to expose Emma's betrayal using my name as a shield. Jake was there Saturday night when Emma's phone started buzzing with the photos. He watched her world fall apart and felt terrible about the timing, but he said it was the perfect moment because you were safely away and couldn't be blamed in person. "But I was blamed," I said. "Everyone thought I did it." Patricia looked ashamed. "He didn't anticipate Emma's preemptive campaign against you. He thought the evidence would speak for itself, and Marcus would simply be grateful to learn the truth." Marcus, who had been silent during this revelation, finally spoke. "Jake did this for Sloane. He never got over her," Patricia admitted. "When he heard you'd excluded her from the engagement party, he was furious. He said Emma was poison, and that someone needed to protect your family from her manipulation." She handed me the envelope. Inside were copies of all the photos that had been sent to Emma's phone, along with a detailed timeline of her infidelity and a written explanation from Jake. His letter was 3 pages long, but the opening paragraph said everything. "Sloane, if you're reading this, it means Emma's lies have probably made you look guilty of something you didn't do. I couldn't stand by and watch her destroy your brother's life while simultaneously casting you out of the family. You deserved better. Marcus deserved the truth. And Emma deserved to face consequences for her actions." The investigation had been meticulous. Jake had hired the PI after witnessing Emma making out with another man at a charity gala in September, an event Marcus hadn't attended. The PI had then documented a pattern of infidelity that was breathtaking in its scope and audacity. Emma had been maintaining relationships with at least 3 different men during her engagement to Marcus. One was a married executive at her pharmaceutical company. Another was a personal trainer at her gym. The third was actually her ex-boyfriend from Connecticut, who she'd claimed to have outgrown when she moved to Denver. The personal trainer, Patricia explained, was the one photographed with her the Thursday before the engagement party. While Marcus was working late and you were already in Hawaii, Emma was in this man's apartment until 2 in the morning. The photos showed Emma leaving the trainer's building at 2:17 a.m. on Friday morning, less than 12 hours before her engagement party. She'd gone home, gotten ready for her special day, and pretended to be a loving fiancé while carrying on multiple affairs. "Why didn't Jake tell me he was doing this?" I asked. "He wanted to protect you from being involved. If the investigation had gone badly, if Emma had discovered it earlier, he didn't want you to face any blowback. He planned to tell you everything after the engagement party once Emma was safely out of your family's life." Marcus was studying the photos with an expression of growing disgust. "She went to that trainer Thursday night, and then came home to me Friday morning talking about how excited she was for our future together." The sophistication of Emma's deception was staggering. She'd been maintaining multiple relationships while simultaneously planning a wedding, vetting her fiancé's family for social acceptability, and systematically isolating potential threats to her scheme. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. "The PI discovered that Emma has done this before. In Connecticut, she was engaged to another man 2 years ago. That engagement ended abruptly when the man's family hired investigators and discovered her infidelity. She left Connecticut shortly after that scandal died down. Emma was a professional relationship predator, moving from city to city, finding successful men to upgrade her lifestyle while maintaining her sexual freedom through affairs. Marcus had been her latest mark, carefully chosen and thoroughly vetted. So she wasn't just cheating," Marcus said. "She was running a long-term con." "The PI believes she would have gone through with the marriage," Patricia explained, "but probably would have divorced you within 2 years for irreconcilable differences, taking half of everything you'd built." I thought about Emma's cruel comments about my lifestyle and career, her systematic campaign to exclude me from family events, her preemptive blame strategy. Every move had been calculated to protect her scheme and eliminate potential threats. "Jake wanted me to give you this personally," Patricia said, handing me a separate letter. "He's been in therapy dealing with guilt about the timing and how it affected you." Jake's personal letter was shorter, but more emotional. "Sloan, I know our relationship ended for good reasons, and I respect that you've moved on. But watching Emma treat you like you were somehow beneath her, watching your own brother exclude you from his life, I couldn't do nothing. You're the most genuine person I've ever known, and seeing you being punished for not being fake enough for Emma's world made me sick. I'm sorry the timing made you look guilty. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But I'm not sorry Emma's true nature was exposed before she could destroy your brother completely. You deserve a family that values your authenticity, not one that punishes you for it." I was crying by the time I finished reading. For months I'd felt like I was going crazy, like there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made my own family find me embarrassing. Learning that someone had cared enough to protect me from Emma's manipulation felt like being rescued from drowning. "Where is Jake now?" I asked. "He flew to Portland for work yesterday. He'll be back Friday. He's terrified you'll hate him for interfering in your family's business." I looked at Marcus, who was still processing the scope of Emma's betrayal. "Do you hate him for interfering?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I hate that it took my ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend to protect my family better than I did. I hate that Jake saw through Emma when I was blind to her manipulation. But hate him for saving me from marrying someone who was using me, no, I'm grateful." Patricia stayed for another hour, helping us understand the full timeline of Jake's investigation and Emma's systematic deception. When she left, Marcus and I sat in my living room surrounded by evidence of how close our family had come to being permanently poisoned by someone who'd seen us as nothing more than social climbing opportunities. "I need to call everyone," Marcus said, finally. "The family, Emma's friends who've been harassing you, everyone who believed her lies. I need to tell them the truth." "What truth exactly?" "That Emma Richardson is a predator who nearly destroyed our family. That my sister was innocent of everything except having better instincts about people than I did. And that I owe you an apology that will probably take the rest of my life to deliver properly." For the first time in months, I felt like I had my brother back. The family group chat that had been chaotic with accusations and blame just days before became the platform for Marcus's public vindication of me. He posted a lengthy message explaining Jake's investigation, Emma's pattern of deception, and his own shameful behavior in excluding me from their lives. The response was immediate and overwhelming. "Aunt Linda, oh my God, Sloan, I'm so sorry. We should never have believed those terrible things about you. Cousin Jennifer, I feel sick about those messages I sent. Can you ever forgive us?" Even my typically reserved father posted a rare emotional message. "Sloan, your mother and I are proud of the dignity you showed throughout this ordeal. You handled yourself with more grace than any of us deserved." But the real reckoning came when Marcus called Emma's sister Ashley to explain what they'd discovered. According to Marcus, Ashley's reaction was telling. Not surprise, but resignation. "She said Emma's family has been cleaning up her messes for years," Marcus told me over dinner Friday night. "Apparently, Emma's pattern is to find successful men, get engaged quickly, and then create elaborate dramas when the relationships inevitably fall apart due to her cheating. The family usually bribes or threatens people to keep quiet, but this time the evidence was too overwhelming and public." Ashley had also revealed that Emma's parents were cutting her off financially for the first time in her life. The engagement party humiliation had been too public, too damaging to their social standing. Emma was on her own now, which explained her desperate flight back to Connecticut. "Ashley actually thanked me," Marcus continued. "She said maybe this public exposure would finally force Emma to get therapy and face consequences for her actions." Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor to my apartment. Jake stood at my door looking nervous and uncertain, holding a small wrapped package. "I know I probably should have called first," he said. "But I wanted to apologize in person for putting you through this week of hell." I invited him in, feeling awkward but grateful. We hadn't spoken in over a year, and seeing him again brought back memories of why our relationship had worked and why it had ended. "You saved my brother from making the biggest mistake of his life," I said, "and you protected our family from someone who saw us as targets to be used and discarded. I can't be angry about that." Even though you got blamed for my actions, Jake, Emma was building a case against me before you ever took a single photo. She would have found a way to make me the villain no matter what. At least this way the truth came out. He handed me the package. Inside was a framed photo from our trip to Rocky Mountain National Park 3 years ago. Both of us laughing on a hiking trail, looking genuinely happy and carefree. "I kept this because it reminded me of who you really are," he said. "Someone who finds joy in simple, authentic experiences." When I watched Emma trying to make you feel ashamed of that authenticity, I realized I still cared about protecting it. We talked for 2 hours, catching up on our lives and processing the strange situation that had brought us back into each other's orbit. Jake had grown during our time apart, become more confident and direct. The man who'd orchestrated Emma's downfall was different from the one I'd dated, more decisive, more protective. "I'm not asking to get back together," he said, as he prepared to leave. "I know we ended for good reasons. But I want you to know that watching you handle this situation with such dignity reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place." There was something healing about that conversation, about having someone acknowledge my worth during a time when my own family had found me lacking. Sunday brought the most satisfying development of all. Marcus received a call from Detective Rodriguez of the Denver Police Department. Emma had attempted to file criminal charges against me for harassment and stalking, claiming I'd hired someone to take photos of her without consent. The detective reviewed all the evidence, Marcus told me, barely containing his laughter. Jake's PI had only photographed Emma in public places where she had no expectation of privacy. Meanwhile, Emma's attempt to frame you for stalking backfired because her own phone records showed she'd been texting multiple men throughout her engagement, often sending them explicit photos voluntarily. Emma's desperation move had exposed even more of her infidelity to law enforcement. The detective had advised her that filing false police reports was a crime, and suggested she might want to reconsider her accusations. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected package with no return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $5,000 and a note for the Hawaii trip you deserved, and the peace of mind Emma tried to steal. Sometimes karma needs help. A friend. I suspected Jake was behind it, though he denied it when I asked. The money felt like a blessing, allowing me to plan another solo adventure without financial stress. A month after the engagement party catastrophe, our family had dinner together for the first time since the crisis. Marcus looked healthier, more like his old self. He'd started therapy to understand how he'd been so easily manipulated and to work on rebuilding our relationship. "I've been thinking about what Emma said," he told us over dessert, "about you not fitting the image she wanted to create. The truth is, you represented everything that was real about our family. Loyalty, authenticity, genuine love. She had to eliminate you because your presence made her fake lifestyle impossible to maintain." Mom reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "We're sorry it took us so long to see what was happening. Emma was very good at manipulation." Dad nodded. "Your strength through all of this showed us who you really are. We're proud of you, Sloan." 6 months later, I received one final piece of closure. Ashley Richardson called to tell me that Emma had been arrested in Connecticut for credit card fraud. Apparently, her pattern of deception extended beyond relationships to financial crimes. She was facing serious charges that would likely result in jail time. "She's claiming she's the victim of a vast conspiracy," Ashley said. "That you and your family orchestrated her downfall out of jealousy. Even facing criminal charges, she can't accept responsibility for her own actions." Emma would spend the next 2 years in minimum security prison, followed by 5 years of probation. Her days of using and discarding people for social climbing were over. As for me, the experience taught me valuable lessons about family loyalty, personal worth, and the importance of trusting my instincts about people. Marcus and I rebuilt our relationship slowly but genuinely. He never again let a romantic partner dictate his family relationships. Jake and I remained friends, occasionally meeting for coffee or hiking trips. He'd given me something precious: the knowledge that someone had cared enough to protect me when I couldn't protect myself. While we didn't rekindle our romance, we maintained a connection based on mutual respect and shared values. The family that excluded me for not being refined enough eventually learned that true refinement comes from character, not social status. Emma's sophisticated manipulation had been exposed by simple honesty and genuine care for family bonds. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply being authentic in a world that rewards deception. Emma's elaborate schemes couldn't survive contact with people who valued truth over status, love over image, and family loyalty over social climbing. So let me ask you something that's been on my mind since sharing this story. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to make you feel ashamed of who you are? How did you handle it, and what did you learn about family loyalty in the process? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your stories. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama and life lessons. Share this with someone who needs to hear that staying true to yourself is always worth it, even when others try to convince you otherwise. Thank you for listening to my family revenge story, and for reminding me that authenticity always wins in the end. Here's to families that support each other, love that doesn't require us to change who we are, and the sweet justice that comes when truth finally prevails. Remember, you don't need to earn your place in a family that truly loves you. They'll make space for exactly who you are.